So over the last 15 years, I have interviewed hundreds, probably over 1,000 students at this point. I've also reviewed thousands of resumes. And so I decided maybe I'd take some of the things that I've learned about how to evaluate resumes and how to create resumes and so forth to help you as you're crafting your resume to land a job in high finance. And so today I want to talk about venture capital and how to craft a resume that will speak to a VC. Now, the first question you need to ask yourself is, what are VCs looking for? Now, generally, you can look at like a job description, right, of what a VC is put on their job posting. Oftentimes, VCs don't even do job postings. They just kind of reach out through their network and hire people that they know and trust, or hire people that are referred to them by people that they know and trust. And so in some cases, like, you may not have a specific job description to go off of. It can be helpful to search around and see what other job descriptions look like. But in today's video, I just want to talk about like the things that I think you should really communicate through your resume to the VC that's reviewing this. Now, this is for jobs that are at the like analyst associate level. If you want to be like a principal or partner track position, that's like a very different resume. But for most people, like, they get their foot in the door in venture, it's going to be at that analyst and associate role, especially where the resume is super relevant. It becomes less relevant the higher up you go within the organization, which, you know, is pretty common across the board, regardless of what industry you're in. Okay, so going back to my question, like, what do VCs care about? Well, so if I think about like my job as a VC, and I was going to hire somebody, right? What would I hire them to do? Well, I would hire them to help me like offload a bunch of the stuff that I'm doing onto them and get more leverage on my time. And I would hire somebody that I could trust to put in front of entrepreneurs and investors, right? Because otherwise, like, I'm not really getting much leverage on my time. And so ultimately what people get hired for in venture capital here are kind of workhorses of the firm, right? And so what makes a good venture fund? Well, you got to be able to fundraise, you got to be able to source deals, you have to be able to do diligence and pick good deals, right? And so the way I would probably be thinking about my job as a partner at the firm is like, hey, I've got all of this experience. I'm pretty good at using my network to source deals. I'm pretty good at, hopefully, at picking good deals. And I'm pretty good at fundraising. But areas where I could get some leverage from somebody that's young and smart and a hard worker is probably on the deal sourcing and probably on the due diligence and helping me make better decisions. So with that, I kind of think about this role in three buckets. You got to be able to like demonstrate like that you could help source deals, that you can perform due diligence, and that you work hard, you know, you can grind. Because that's really what I want. I want somebody that's going to come in and work as hard as I am, or maybe even harder, to help me get more leverage on my time. So let's talk about the first one. So sourcing deals. So there are basically like two ways in which you source deals at a venture fund. One can be that you are just kind of cold emailing, cold calling, building out like a thesis, whatever. The other is you already come with a network. Now, most VCs are going to be looking for somebody ideally that already comes with a network, right? Maybe you go to Stanford and you know a lot of people in the ecosystem that are starting companies, right? Like that would be an example of like a network advantage. Or maybe you've worked at like a bunch of accelerators and you've done a really good job at those accelerators. You met a ton of companies, you met a ton of investors, like you're in the flow. Or maybe you're part of like the entrepreneurship club in your school and you go to all the local tech events and you've like built out this great network. If you can demonstrate those things, those are going to stand out really strong. Now, if you don't have that, then that's going to bring us to my last suggestion, right? Being a hard worker. Be able to demonstrate that you're really good at sales, that you can do cold calling, that you can do cold outreach, that people respond, that you hustle and you work hard, and you know that you're thoughtful in terms of like how you analyze markets and so forth. That also includes to a certain degree like a really deep interest and understanding of technology and the way trends are moving, particularly in ways that are relevant to the venture fund and its thesis. So for example, one of my students ended up going to work for a venture fund that does crypto investing. Well, part of the reason he got that job was that he was able to demonstrate that he was like super passionate about crypto, had done a ton of investing, had built relationships with a lot of entrepreneurs in the space just as a hungry, smart hustler, right? And so when the venture fund was looking at lots of people it could hire, and it had like, you know, its pick of who it wanted, they ended up picking him because of all of this expertise that allowed him to do a better job than most when it came to deal sourcing. That experience also gave him a leg up when it came to performing due diligence, which is the other thing that you need to be able to demonstrate, that you know how to analyze markets, analyze trends, build financial models, pull together like cap tables and leverage those cap tables to build returns models and so forth. You know, being a little bit of an Excel jockey can be really beneficial, and understanding like the various terms that you need to be able to talk about. So those are the types of things you need to demonstrate in your resume. So maybe you went and you worked for a start, like an accelerator, or maybe you had an internship with a startup and you were helping on the financials of that startup, right? That would be interesting to talk about in your resume and to highlight and say, hey, look, I worked at this startup. That already flags like, hey, I like startups. I like tech investing. I worked on the financials. I helped build their model. That would imply that like you have some good modeling skills and that you understand like some of the key metrics that go into that. So like maybe you intern with an enterprise SaaS business that's at the very early stage. So maybe you got in and you helped build their forecast model, right? And you can talk about how you forecasted churn and customer acquisition costs and LTV and how you did that. And like all of those things are gonna like, you're gonna be like speaking the lingo of the venture fund. So include as much of those types of things in your resume as possible. Now, the last one is being a hard worker. Now, you know, most people are going to recognize that in venture capital, it's hard to get experience in venture capital because there's just not a lot of jobs out there for it. So if you don't have a lot of experience that's like specifically related to what this fund does in the venture arena, then at the very minimum, demonstrate that you are a hard worker. I have a friend, and years ago, he applied to this venture fund, and it was just like a cold email kind of thing or cold call, and he's like, hey, I really want to work for you. And they were like, well, do you have any experience? And he's like, no, I don't have any experience. And they're like, well, we don't really hire interns. And he was like, look, I will work for free. I will do whatever it takes, and I will kill myself to be great for you. And they were like, you know, okay, fine. We'll let you in part-time. Like, we're not going to pay you, blah, blah, blah. And he got in and he just worked incredibly hard. And I think what he was able to demonstrate in his resume and through his conversations, even just to like get them to agree to that, was that he was a hard worker. And you're going to hear me talk about this in other videos about resumes, but I really love this story or this concept of being a dual bagger. So if you're at the grocery store, right, and you check out and there's, you know, a young kid usually that's like bagging the groceries for you, most of the time you get somebody that just kind of, you know, they're just kind of grabbing them and putting them in regular, no problem, right? But occasionally you get what I call like the dual bagger, right? They don't just have one bag out, they got two. And they're not just grabbing one at a time. They're grabbing like both hands. They're going like really fast. They're getting them all ready. Boom, boom, boom in the cart, right? They're almost like ready to push the cart out for you and load your car, right? And maybe in some cases they do that, right? My point with that is like there are probably not a lot of jobs that are a whole lot less glamorous than like packing groceries into grocery bags. And yet that person is going like all the way max effort on doing the best job that they can as a grocery bag deliver or like bagger, right? That is what you want to demonstrate. You want to demonstrate that like you are that type of individual, that no matter what your experience is, that you really rise and shine and go above and beyond to do the best you possibly can. So what does that mean for your resume? So man, if you're flipping burgers at McDonald's, that's fine, but don't just say you flip burgers. Tell me how many burgers you flipped. Tell me that you were like, you know, employee of the month every month for the whole time you were there because you just hustled harder than anybody else, right? Demonstrate hustle, because as a VC, like you may not have the experience, but if I believe that you'll come in and you'll work really hard and you can learn the stuff fast, that will be really compelling to me. Anyways, there are a lot of other things that could be included in this video in terms of how to prep your resume or the things that you should be including. But generally, like, I hope that's helpful. Like, demonstrate that you can help source deals, that you can help do due diligence, that you hustle, you work hard, the more relevant experience that you can put on your resume in terms of finance, tech, startups, any of those types of things are going to speak volumes to like the passion that you have for this industry, which is also super important. Like everybody wants to hire people that are really passionate about what they do, because, you know, the person that's like sitting in the shower and, you know, falling asleep and walking to class or walking, you know, wherever it is, and they're thinking about startups and technology and venture and so forth all the time, are the same types of people that aren't going to just like do the job because it's a job and then go home and do something else. They're the types of people that are going to be super passionate. They're going to put a ton of time and effort into it. They're going to be more knowledgeable, right, about this space and what's going on than those that don't. And those are the types of people that VCs want to hire. And so the more that you can demonstrate that through your resume, through the experiences and through the accomplishments you've had, the more likely it is that you'll stand out. I hope this video was helpful. Be sure to check out some of my other videos where I talk about resumes and how to prep your resumes and craft them, as well as my videos on how to prepare for an interview, like the one where I talk about how to prepare for a venture capital interview. Thanks for joining.